What's that?
Thanks for coming.
Oh yeah, no problem, no problem. So, thank you. My name is Derek Amlie. I was asked to come here and speak by Robin. From a military officer's perspective, I recently got out. I was a captain in the U.S. Army and West Point graduate. And my plebe year at West Point. Thank you. My plebe year at West Point, I had come home and was watching some of the Iraq War on CNN, and it was kind of unsettling to me, but I didn't really know why. I guess my views on war hadn't quite coalesced at that point into defined opinion anyways. But something unsettling about it, and I think it was just that the fact that the war didn't seem absolutely necessary. And it seems to me that if you're going to go to war, you better have a darn good reason for it instead of trumping up charges and basically using it as a defensive tool. There are certain specific issues about the Iraq War that troubled me. You know, the Pat Tillman incident, and then later on the Valerie Plame incident kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back, to say. And but on a more general level, there was a mandatory military history class at West Point that I took my senior year. And there's one thing I noticed, not just looking back at the last 100 years of war in our country and whatnot, but more like 2,000 years. And there's a common theme that seemed to me in all these wars, and that was that there was a very small group of people, sometimes one person, a king or emperor, or a small group of people that was gaining from these wars to the detriment of other people, either the glorification of themselves, the small group, or just the enrichment of themselves. And that seemed to trouble me to a great extent. I think that's very applicable these days. You see a very small group of people getting big government contracts for these wars, making money off of these wars, and then of course there's also the glorification angle for some people. Like right over there with the $1 million bill hanging out. But I had a debate a couple months ago with a former Air Force Academy graduate and a former Air Force officer. We were talking about the justifications for the war and the morality and that sort of thing, you know, the wars, I should say. And I said, well, you know, we can sit here and argue about whether or not I should go buy a Boeing 747, but I don't have the money for it. So we can talk about what the moral justification for that is, or whether it's right or wrong, but I don't have the money for it. We don't have the money for these wars. Yeah. And yet we still have, as of recently, 44 senators sending a note to President Obama basically suggesting that we should start another war. I don't know how many people have heard of that one, but 44 senators, Amy Klobuchar included in that group. Yeah. So sending a letter basically telling us, hey, let's get another war, as if we don't have enough, right? So for the meaty portion of my short speech here, I want to talk about a few falsehoods that are perpetrated by the media and by the government, which are the two big mouthpieces for war, of course. The first one being that wars make the military stronger. There's this idea that if you just go around attacking people and shove money into the military, that it somehow makes the military stronger. To me, training and technology make the military stronger, not attacking people without justification. In fact, attacking people without justification actually turns sentiment against the war, which turns sentiment kind of against the military to a certain extent, or at least makes people not want to sign up. So you have a smaller pool to draw from when you have people who don't agree with the wars, of course. So the smaller pool to draw from is going to make your applicants less impressive in general. And then also you don't retain the creative, intelligent people. I see, I look at my class from West Point, and the people who I thought to myself when I graduated, like, these people are really intelligent, creative, outside the box kind of thinkers. These people are going places in their lives. These people are all out of the military. As soon as their 5-year commitment was ended, they're gone. And it's the people who, then what you're left with are the people that really don't have the kind of options, because they're not outside of the box thinkers. They can't sit there and figure out a way to go get a civilian job and translate what this leadership that they've learned into the civilian world. So that's one falsehood. Another falsehood is that we, meaning you and I, pay for these wars. And there's some truth to that. There's some deception that goes along with that, of course, like when you're putting money into Social Security, and that money, instead of going into some sort of trust fund, is actually going into the war coffers. That's some deceit right there. There's also the inflation angle, which inflation is basically a tax, and a tax on people on fixed income in general, but more specifically, it's just a tax on, or more generally, a tax on everyone. And so those are the two deceitful ways that we actually do kind of pay for the war. But the real people who are really paying for these wars are our kids and grandkids and great-grandkids, because we're funding these wars through debt. Or whether it be from China or whoever, we're funding these wars through debt. So those are the people who are really paying for these wars. So it's not necessarily us. Falsehood number 3. You'll hear a lot of reports. Oh, there's X number of casualties in the war. There's Y number of dollars been spent, and that's not reality either. There's a lot of casualties. People with PTSD. I've served with these people. They can't come back and lead a normal life. You know, these people are broken in ways that we can't see. And there's also economic costs involved with that, because these people can't just go into a job. These people are kind of lost to the economy, for one thing. And there's also the emotional costs of people who lose loved ones in the war. There's these people who are injured in the more physical and visual sense that are going to be spending the rest of their lives at the VA. Those are monetary costs that people really don't take into account. So these costs aren't necessarily happening today, but they're going to be happening for the rest of our lives, or the rest of at least the lives of the injured. Falsehood number 4: the media is unbiased. I don't think I have to say in front of this crowd probably that Fox News is completely biased, and of course I'm sure all of you could probably detail a few dozen reasons why that's the case. But CNN, in my mind, is just as bad. You've got one of the main figureheads of the war reporting for CNN, Wolf Blitzer, being a former lobbyist for one of the most, one of the biggest war proponents of any political action committee in the United States, AIPAC. And then finally, my final falsehood is that things are improving in the war. You always hear that, oh, things are improving, things are improving. And it's funny, I haven't heard this one recently, but a couple of years ago I was hearing that things in Afghanistan are improving, right? And I had buddies over there who were telling me the opposite of what I was hearing on the news. But these are my good friends from West Point, saying that they're getting intelligence, so they're putting out intelligence, and what the public affairs officials are saying is something completely different. So those are the falsehoods that I came up with. I probably could have come up with a dozen more, but I want to keep this kind of short. So what are the solutions? Me being a finance guy, I'm actually getting my finance MBA here pretty shortly. The first thing that comes to my mind is we have to think about finance in this country a little bit different, so that we're not spending all this money on wars. We have to think about our money as actually our money instead of the U.S. government's. Because anytime the government has control of the monetary supply, they can just print as much money as they want. You're going to have war eventually. It's no coincidence that I don't know who I was talking with earlier. Was talking about how in the War of 1812 was it maybe Doug over there? The War of 1812. We got a central bank. We got our most recent central bank in 1913, the Federal Reserve now, and 3 years later we're in the First World War. Of course, there's a big connection between central banking and wars, and people need to understand that. Second solution that I've got is turn off CNN and Fox News, and get your information somewhere else. Where do you get your information from? I tell you to go get it from 8 different sources, and then decide for yourself. 8 different sources. Decide for yourself. And do it in a proactive manner. Don't be passive. Don't sit in front of the TV and just let things soak into your mind, because you're going to get the wrong information. It's no coincidence that every time you see a peace candidate, whether it's on the left with Dennis Kucinich or on the right with Ron Paul, that all of a sudden these people are crazy. CNN and Fox News.